Hi everyone, my name is Theresa Wong, and I'm a composer, cellist, and vocalist, and my work often incorporates improvisation and the use of multiple media. I grew up in upstate New York as a first-generation Chinese American, so my parents immigrated from Canton and Hong Kong to the States. I grew up studying mostly classical piano and cello, and took a break in college to explore the area of design. So I studied product design and graphic design, but I eventually came back to music through my discovery of experimental music and improvisation. This field of creative music really brought together those two worlds for me of music, which was always my passion, and the kind of explorative and innovative field of design. So since coming back to music, I've been really centered in my practice with the cello and voice as the focus, but from there kind of going out in circles to song forms, exploring improvisation, exploring collaboration and writing for ensembles, as well as using multiple media and visual art in performances. For me, the core of what I feel that I'm exploring is really the power of vibrations and the way that vibrations are sort of at the core of how we connect to ourselves and to each other and to the world around us. So often I'm kind of researching how vibrations function and how they can have the potential for transformation when we perform. So I'm going to take you through several of my pieces. Some of them incorporate alternative tunings, some of them incorporate visual media or improvisation, but you'll see how the connections all kind of come back around, and I hope you enjoy. One of the main questions that guides my solo work is how can I rediscover the core of the cello as wood and string and hair, or even simply as a tree? Here's an improvisation exploring that question, which I played in Samsung Hall of the Asian Art Museum of San Francisco. In 2022, I was the inaugural Soundscapes artist at the museum, where I created 3 site-specific pieces inspired by works in the museum's collection over 6 months. Here are some excerpts from another solo piece called Fluency of Trees, which I premiered at the Other Minds Festival in San Francisco in October 2022. The piece explores connection to the primal sentience of the natural world. The cello is tuned to a lower A 216 Hz and in scordatura, allowing for harmonic explorations in just intonation, a tuning system based on the natural overtones of resonating frequencies. For me, examining alternate harmonies, tunings, and resonances is a vibrational act of seeking new modes of relating to one another and to the environment around us. The text at the end describes my own memories of trees, using Italian and Cantonese languages as both narrative and abstract material.
Non ho visto la tua barca più su. C'era un albero di olive, anche due uccelli. Io 또雀仔喺個電話線度坐緊，São hanno il piumaggio variopinto. C'erano nero, hak색, azzurro, lam색, verde anche luksik, e anche arancione, changsik.
I've just released Practicing Sands, an album of solo pieces for cello and voice, which documents many years of exploring various techniques and approaches to working with these two instruments and their elemental nature. It's released on my label, Folksel, which I started in 2018 to publish adventurous music from the San Francisco Bay Area and beyond. I also create the cover art and graphic designs for all the albums. In 2006, I began to work with Ellen Fullman, the composer and inventor of the long string instrument, or LSI. Between 2015 and 2018, we created and performed Harbors, a collaborative composition for her instrument and the cello amplified electronically through 4 channels. Here's an excerpt of Harbors performed at the Neefnor Festival in Knoxville, Tennessee in 2017. In 2020, Harbors was released on Room 40 and included in Wire's Top 50 Releases of the Year. We're currently composing a new work, exploring new tools to expand our possibilities in string resonance. When I first began to play in just intonation, I mapped out the harmonics of the cello to better understand this tuning system, as I had only been previously exposed to 12-tone equal temperament. Dividing the cello string length into equal divisions, I could see the relationships between harmonics, press notes, and pitches of the overtone series mapped to the 13th harmonic. It was quite a surprise to discover much later that this approach is very similar to the music of the qin, an ancient Chinese seven-stringed zither and one of my favorite instruments. I almost feel that I'm genetically inclined somehow to approach the cello in this way. Back in 2002, while working at Fabrica, a design and research center in northern Italy, I designed Slice, a cake plate that went into production for an Italian tableware company, Paola Ci, which was also exhibited at the Milan Furniture Fair. As you can see, the plate made it easy to cut up a cake into equal divisions of 8 to 16 pieces. Funny again how time comes back on itself, as I recently have been working with the same geometry, only in this case, to subdivide an octave into whole integer relationships of the fundamental in order to create a justly tuned scale. Here's another tool that has opened up ways of exploring alternative tuning systems. Using a program called Touch OSC, I've recreated Harry Partch's 11-limit tonality diamond as a virtual instrument. I use this as a source to compose As We Breathe, an intermedia work commissioned by Long Beach Opera for their 2020 songbook. Being in the thick of lockdown in the fall of 2020, I created this piece working remotely with baritone David Castillo, who was in Los Angeles. Setting poetry by my dear friend Mercedes Roffé, I wrote a song which David recorded with audio and video. He then sent all the footage to me, from which I created a multi-tracked recording and video collage. I also retuned a koto to various pitches from the Parched Diamond and improvised on the recording. The video was then projected and filmed again on a sculpture made out of paper, which was manipulated by the movement of air, the very element connecting COVID, the Black Lives Matter movement, and the California wildfires raging around me at the time. Although this piece was premiered online as a film, it was the first realization of a form I am continuing to develop, called an installed song, which would ideally be experienced in three-dimensional space as sculpture, image, sound, and movement.
I breathe the air you breathe. I breathe the air they breathe. She breathes the air they breathe. A colonel dreams it is already. A gold spike of corn. A colonel dreams it is already a gold spike of corn. And the boy dreams he is a man. Evil dreams it passes unnoticed. And goodness that it plays a hand and will. I breathe the air you breathe. I breathe the air you breathe. Breathe the air you breathe. I breathe the air you breathe. To dreams it is already a deep sea, and the golden sea that it is approaching, and they breathe the air I breathe. A root tree, it is a branch that a bird makes its nest in it, and the cloud that it is already red. I breathe the air and seeping the fresh asperity of grass. I breathe, they breathe the air he breathes.
In 2022, I composed a piece commissioned by Helia Music Collective and Jeff Anderley for his clarinet studio at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. I wanted to introduce the basics of just intonation to the young students and to allow them to hear pure intervals not commonly played on their instruments. Like a recognition of these intervals, I named the piece Tushtak in recognition of Mount Diablo, a mountain near my childhood home in the San Francisco East Bay. This was the name of the mountain given by the Chochenyo Ohlone natives, meaning at the dawn of time. Here's a multi-tracked recording performed by Jeff Anderley. So this next piece that I'm going to share with you is called The Secret of Growth. And I created this piece as a commission from Naked Eye Ensemble, who are based in Pennsylvania. When I first started to work on this piece, I wanted to create somehow a work that would serve sort of as an ancestral altar. I feel that through through creating work, we can connect with different times, different people, different places that are sort of outside our normal idea of linear time. So in this work, I've incorporated some elements of the traditional ancestor worship practice, which wasn't ever really a part of my upbringing, but I feel it's sort of like doing this gesture and doing this act in my own way as a contemporary artist. And so I've used photographs of family members from my own family and taken elements like burning joss paper, which is a way to kind of give offerings of money and material things to deceased ancestors, and also exploring sounds in the way this ensemble are performing very composed structures, but also using elements of improvisation to kind of merge the sound with a film that I've created that is projected in the performance. So some of the other visual imagery in the film draw on traditional offerings that are typical at altars, including light, water, flowers, and food. So here are a couple excerpts from The Secret of Growth, performed by Naked Eye Ensemble at Temple University in 2022. This last piece I'm going to share with you is entitled In Stillness I Sing, And it was commissioned by the San Francisco Girls Chorus right in the middle of the thick of the pandemic. I was approached by the artistic director, Valerie Santagat, to create a piece for the chorus and for the wonderful pianist, Sarah Cahill, that was really to work in a way to connect and to engage together in creative ways during lockdown. So through several months of the pandemic, so the end of 20 to beginning of 2021, I worked remotely on Zoom with the choristers, and we decided to create a piece really centered around their experiences of the pandemic, because that's what everyone was going through, and it was sort of hard to ignore. And so over a series of weeks, I gave them weekly prompts asking them about something about their experience, and they would reply in any form, including videos or writing, poetry, paintings. And then I collected that material and then generated 20-minute work, really using texts and imagery from all of the choristers. So here's just a short excerpt. When we finally premiered the piece in 2021, I meant 2022. In the spring, this was actually the first time that I believe they had performed live together since the lockdown, and it was the first concert that I had attended in person. So it was a very moving experience. The text for this particular movement was written by one of the choristers, Lois McTrang, and it was a response to the prompt, "What are you hopeful for in the new year?" And this was in 2020, so this was a projection of what would happen in the year following. During lockdown, several of these movements were also broadcast on air on Sarah Cahill's radio show, Revolutions Per Minute, on KALW. And they were broadcast with conversations with some of the singers on air and with Valerie Santagat and myself. And in the beginning, the very first movement was actually recorded via Jack Trip, a software developed at Stanford that enabled low latency recording. So that was the beginning of our process. And then as things started to open up, we were able to record in person. So this whole piece sort of moves through the phases of our whole experience during the pandemic.